Hey guys, James here today and welcome to another Sims 4 house building video. Today, this is my very first one using the new terrain manipulation that was just added in the game for free for all players on PC and Mac. They have said that it is coming to console, but they haven't said when. That's just a running theme, by the way. Because the thing is, whenever a new update or game pack or expansion comes to PC, immediately console players are like, is it coming to console too? And the answer is, I don't think it's ever been no. I don't think the answer for console's ever been no. It's always been, it is, but we can't say when. Anyway, I completely digress massively here at the beginning. Anyway, using the new terrain tools, the very first thing I wanted to build was the pit from the TV show Parks and Recreation. If you've ever watched that show or heard of that show, it's a sitcom, and the premise at the very beginning of the show is that there's this girl that's called Ann. She lives next to this pit. And that's the story. No, basically, so next door there was like a development that was going to take place. So they excavated a huge pit next to her house where it was going to build. And then, I don't know, for whatever reason, the construction stopped and it was never finished. And it's just been left as a big open hole. And it's really unsafe because people are falling into it. Namely her boyfriend, Andy Dwyer. Classically played by Chris Pratt. Great show. Highly recommend watching it. It's really funny. Anyway, so the idea is there's this big pit, there's a house next to it, and at one point, Andy ends up living in the pit in a tent at the bottom. So we're going to be doing that as well. So we're essentially building, there's obviously no exact images of the pit. Like, we've sort of built a few of the key elements from screen grabs that I've been able to find. I grabbed a few images here and there, and then I was actually also live streaming this entire build. So while I was doing that, a bunch of the viewers were helping me out, sending in other screen grabs that they had got. And we also tried to recreate Ann's house as faithfully as we could, including the furnishings. And so once we get to that, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But for now, we're sort of playing around here with the landscaping. So one thing that with terrain tools, very cool, wish they would change or add the ability to recolor the sort of steep cliffs or the steep slopes of where the terrain levels up. It's like permanently, in this world, it's actually different for every world. In this world, I'm in Newcrest, the cliffs are painted as just like a dirt texture. In some other worlds, they're like a rock texture. But for some reason, I don't know why they don't allow us to change it. I think it was kind of similar in previous games as well, wasn't it? But I think you could if you just kept painting it. But I don't quite understand the restriction or the idea behind the restriction of not allowing us to change the color of like the cliffs. So anyway, what that means is the side of the pit where it's the steepest, we actually just have to sort of work with the texture that the game gives us. So we try to add a little bit of detail later on by doing some terraforming, making it look a little bit more rugged than it otherwise would. Anyway, so I started off with a really basic pit, obviously, and now I've actually been shaping it quite a lot because looking at a lot of the reference images, there's like sort of bits that sort of stick out a little bit further. There's piles of dirt up the top, and in a few of the episodes, there's a bench that overlooks into the pit that they sit on, and then in another one, there's like some lawn chairs, and they sit there and have a drink. So there's a few different things, and we try to incorporate a few of those around the place as well, just to make it feel a little bit more at home. Also, this was built before the Get Famous expansion came out, so it doesn't use anything from that, but I can highly recommend placing this lot in Mirage Park. It fits in really, really well in that sort of in the Del Sol Valley, the new world. It fits so well in that neighborhood. I think it looks really, really good. And alongside the sort of rundown vibe, it's perfect. It's really good. So right here, there was a few images of the pit where it looked like they'd started building some foundations. Like they'd started laying the foundations. So that's what we're trying to do here. And we're trying to figure out the best way to do it. Because it's like basically like a concrete wall with like steel and rebar sticking out of it. So we're trying to figure out ways to build that. Also, right now, I'm actually going through the hidden items in the game, which if you enter the cheat bb.show hidden objects and then search debug in the menu, you get all these items that are hidden away. And these are typically items used by your Sims during certain interactions, or they're used in other items or decorations around a world. But there's a lot of like weird little trash items that are really good for this pit, because that's something else that they tend to do in the show is just trash all in it. It's just littered and people just throw their garbage in there. So I wanted to make sure that we just had a lot of stuff left over. There's also obviously a lot of old construction stuff left over. So that's why I also decided to lay down some cardboard here. And then I'm just getting a bunch of wooden planks that are sort of just around the place as well. And then there's also these sort of concrete pillars, which were obviously looked like they were the beginnings of some foundation. So we were trying to build a few of those. Actually, I built one of them and then I copied it around a couple of times as well. Now, actually, while we're here, while we're still at the beginning, if you do want to download this, it is available on my gallery page. So the link will be in the description of this video. You can also just search for my origin ID, which is the Sim Supply, all one word, and you'll be able to find it that way. Also, so this, like I said earlier, this was actually live streamed over on Twitch. And if you don't already follow me on Twitch, I would recommend it. I've been doing a lot of live streams this week. We did this one. I've been actually doing almost a little bit of a let's play over there, a little bit of a secret let's play, if you will. Like, not really, but you know, I'm playing as myself sim on there, and I live in a house that's under construction. Is basically, it looks like the walls haven't been built yet, you know, so they've just got all the studs up. And it's all hollow and it's just completely open, and I live in there. And then I ended up marrying, if you've ever seen Deligracy's YouTube Let's Play of the Barbie series, I ended up marrying Barbie as my self-sim, and then she mysteriously died. And I had a baby. I actually had a baby with her first, and then she mysteriously died. And also in that series, I'm basically a caricature of myself. So I'm wearing all these crazy costumes. I wear like the knight outfit. I wear the flower bunny costume. Just at random times, I have a Where's Wally outfit. And I'm also a kleptomaniac, so I go around and steal from people. We also put Deli's self-sim in the world, and we made her live in her dream house. And then we went over there and burgled her. So it's just a lot of fun. It's just a lot of good fun. Anyway, my point of telling you that is make sure to follow me on Twitch, because it's going down. Also, I would recommend, if you are interested in that and you've missed out, you can also go to my website. And if you go to the live streams page on my website, there's a section called Watch Previous Live Streams. And you can see them all there. They're all there. So if you did miss one and you want to find it, it will be there. And the link to my website's in the description as always. So that's there. Also, would recommend checking out my Twitter. Follow that, because I always tweet when I go live. I also have a Discord, and my Discord will notify everyone on the Discord when I go live. So I'll send you a notification through there as well, which is a little bit more reliable than Twitch, I feel, sometimes. But you can also, if you follow on Twitch and turn on notifications, especially if you have the app, it will actually notify you on your phone. So anyway, the other reason I'm blurting this all out here in this video is we used to be able to do videos that were like, hey, we're live now on Twitch. And it was like a 30-second video. We just can't do that anymore, because creators get flagged, and then we get a strike on our channel, and it's a whole thing. So we're not allowed to do that. And I feel like there's a lot of you that might not even know that I'm streaming. So there you go. Anyway, moving on. I don't want to ramble on about that for the rest of the video. I wanted to actually talk about what we're doing. So over here on the left is Ann Perkins' house. This is where she lives. And we're sort of just starting to build it. It's not really in the final location, and it actually changes a lot as we sort of start discovering more and more about it. Because when I started building this, I didn't have that many reference images. There's not a huge amount of stuff that we can go off. Like some TV shows, there's been fans that have made like complete floor plans and designs and layouts of houses from that show. And there was nothing that I could find of Parks and Rec. But there was obviously a lot of screen grabs, so we used that. Like we had some good stills of the alleyway next to her house, which is next to the pit as well. So we're actually able to fairly faithfully recreate this sort of side alleyway next to the house, which I was actually pretty proud of. And I think it turned out like one of the best little spots too. This is also this is actually a really nice house to live in. If you don't mind living next to a pit, this is actually a pretty cool place to live. It ends up being just a 1-bedroom home. We actually begin, like the house that we have there now is actually way bigger than it ends up being, I think, because we didn't really have a good sense of scale, and we couldn't really tell how big it was, especially because there's just not a lot of shots of the interior of the house. We get to see the living room, and then we get to catch glimpses of the kitchen behind it. I think there's probably some episodes where there's more shots, but being able to easily find those stills on the internet was really difficult. So short of actually going through episode by episode trying to find more details on it, I think we were able to, put together a most accurate sort of build that we could. And along with the terrain tools, being able to put the pit next door was great. So if you want to start a sort of homeless sim challenge, you can live in the tent next door. All you have to do is lock the doors on the house, and then you can live in the tent in the bottom of the pit. Oh, man. Oh, it's just good fun, isn't it? It's just, this kind of stuff is just silly. Like, oh, by the way, if you're wondering, the build next door, where it's like there's 3 octagons joined together, that's a good build. You should check that one out too. I think it's called Odd Circle Floor Plan House. I'll link it if I remember as well, so you can check that out. So yeah, you can see there's just a lot of like little fiddling bits here and there as we try to figure out how to best recreate the house. And we're trying to figure out right here, because there's actually like a chain link fence, albeit a pretty crappy one that runs alongside the pit. I think they actually add that in later on. Originally it had nothing, but then there is a little bit of a fence. But The Sims 4 just doesn't have a standard looking chain link fence. What we have is some big metal fence that came with Get to Work, I think. It's like that huge one, which we do actually end up using, but I don't use it all the way along because it's just too big. And it also doesn't even look like a regular fence. It's got these weird hexagons in it as a design, and I'm like, it's not what I want. I just want a really standard, crappy looking chain link fence. Actually, and there is one in the world of Del Sol Valley. Like, I hate when they use like these fences and items that I really want to use, and it's in the world, but it's not in the menus. I'm like, damn it, you made it. Yeah, so I use that fence there. I only did it in that little section to give the illusion that there's it kind of gives you the visual that there's a fence there, but it wasn't supposed to be. If we put it all the way along, I think it would have been too much. It wouldn't have looked great, because ideally the fence needs to be way shorter, just a couple of poles in the ground, and then like this sort of wire between it. You know what I mean? But that just wasn't going to happen. So unfortunately, we just went with that, and then we just did some landscaping around it. And then I think from this point forward, we kind of just move on to the house for a while. We haven't finished landscaping, and we haven't finished the pit either. There's more that goes on near the end because there's a few changes we had to make, but I wanted to get started on the house so we could figure out where that actually fit in. Because like I said, we actually end up making a lot of changes here and there as we go. And this was my first time playing with the new sort of foundations and roofing. And you can see I was having trouble because for some reason the roof didn't place there. And I didn't quite understand why. It should do. I'm pretty sure it's a bug because the garage is obviously on the ground and then a house is on the foundation. And it said that the roof was on uneven ground, like an uneven surface. But it wasn't because we were able to put flooring there. I'm not really sure what happened along those lines, but anyway, so at this point, I'm pretty much trying to look at images of the house because there's a lot of, obviously, front views of the house. There's a lot of reference images of the facade, so we're able to get that pretty accurate. Then beyond that, it's kind of up in the air. It was really difficult. And naturally, with TV show houses, there's no consistency. There typically isn't. Like sometimes, like this one wasn't too bad. Like it's no The Simpsons. If you've ever looked at that house or if you've watched enough of the show, the amount of times the layout of that house changes and just the way things move around and make no sense, it's kind of crazy. So this one, at least the living space is pretty consistent, but then there's certain shots from different points in the show where things had moved around. Not so much so, but we kind of like, and when I say we, I mean me and the audience watching as I was doing this live, we discovered more and more as we kept going on. We're like, oh, hang on, this is over here, and then there's like a few more things hidden away. And it was kind of interesting that and then eventually, I think it actually ended up pretty damn accurate, and I'm really happy with it. Obviously, we had to make up the bedroom and then the other rooms off to the side. We really only know what the living room, the dining room, and a little bit of the kitchen look like. So all of those are pretty accurate, and then the rest is, having a bit of fun, being a bit creative, and doing whatever we want with it. But you can see right now, this space is huge. If you know the show well, or even if you don't, the house in the show is pretty damn small. The living room basically only fits a 3-seater couch and then like a coffee table. So you can see that this room right now is huge. It's way too big, but that's because I hadn't quite figured it out yet. So yeah, we should have a couch, and that's basically the room. At this point, I was able to even fit in a second one, and we were trying to work out. It's like, this isn't making sense. Why is this not working? Why does this layout not make sense? But yeah, we'll keep sort of developing it as we go through. And I think it's really interesting. So kind of like, I guess kind of along the lines of that weird circle build that we did. That's the one across the road. That was based off a floor plan, and that was a challenge to sort of recreate it. This was a fun challenge in itself as well, because it's based off, I guess, a semi-real house. Obviously the facade of the house is real. Then the interiors are probably, I'm going to assume they're just sets somewhere. So it's fun to try and recreate that in The Sims. Obviously, we had to use a little bit of creativity, a little bit of assumptions here and there about what things went where. This is where we discovered by looking at some of the screen grabs that there was actually like a little dining room between the living room and the kitchen. So this is where we sort of separated it off, and we could actually see there was a doorway off the dining room to the side. And I assumed at that point that there was actually no hallways in the house. It looked like we had like double doors going into a bedroom right at the front. Behind that, I could only assume it was a bathroom. We just don't know. We don't know because they don't really show that kind of stuff. And we can basically get the living room down. Then everything around that, we kind of had to. But it's interesting actually designing a house around the furnishing, because that's essentially what we're doing. Like, we have the furnishing, and then we have to base the scale of the house off of that. That's why a lot of the walls kept moving. And I think later on, I even sized down some more stuff and make it a bit smaller here and there. And it's just it's a whole thing. And it's kind of interesting to see it come together in a way like that. Because normally I would always just build the house first and not worry about furnishing. And then after I'd built the rooms, then I'd furnish it. But because we're recreating, we kind of had to do it the other way around. And this is actually, this is where we discovered there's actually a fireplace off to the side there, which we had no idea about until it was like snuck in the edge of a frame in one of the shots. And then there's also another shot later on where there's actually a keyboard right next to the piano. And that's why I had to change the bay window. There is a bay window there, but we had to change to this one because we couldn't fit a keyboard in that space, even though it was essentially the same size. Now, I would probably recommend not lighting that fireplace in gameplay because it might catch that keyboard on fire. It's pretty close together. But anyway, so we saw that in one of the shots. Like, obviously, that's not in every time you see the house. I think it's one of those things that will change throughout the seasons. But in one of the particular instances, it was there. So we decided to put it in. And then we were trying to figure out how to fit the TV in, because it was a fairly decently sized TV, but it was quite low down. So it was like obviously below the window, so it didn't block the window there. So we're trying to sort of fit that in. And then it's all going to be on an angle because the couch is sort of facing in at an angle like that. And just trying to get this all to maneuver into the right spots. It's a lot of fun. Oh yeah, then we discovered there was another window there as well. Like there was like, it was actually really funny because it's like, okay, we're going through and we're like, oh, hang on, there's a window there. Wait, this doesn't make sense. And then we'd have to like try and fix it and work it out. And it was good fun. And then so we essentially have the basic layout, I think now, the living room, and then we go through and do some detailing. And I think there might be a couple. No, actually, I don't think there are any more real adjustments to the layout now. I think we kind of got it down pat. And then the rest of the house kind of adjusts to what we've got here to make it all fit properly. Because it just, like, the rest of the house ends up being way too big. And you'll see a bit of a floor plan issue later on as we start trying to work out how the floor plan actually makes sense. Originally, I was going to do this as a 2-bedroom house. But then I decided it probably wasn't a 2-bedroom house because it's quite small. Like, there's just not that much room. It seemed like it was the right kind of size to only have the one bed. And it seems like Anne from the TV show probably would only have a 1-bedroom house anyway, because I don't think that she would have needed 2. I mean, I guess she could have had an office. Although, to be fair, we do actually put like a home office in this house. So I guess that's technically a 2nd bedroom anyway. But we didn't dress it up that way because I didn't think there was any point in doing that. And then I used a bunch of those hidden items that we were talking about before, put it all over the coffee table to make it look like a bunch of mess, because Andy, who was obviously living with Anne for a while, was always really messy and there was garbage everywhere. We put like some booze bottles on there, some headphones, and just like a lot of random assorted crap just spread out over that. And then we're even trying to get like pictures and items around the room that we've seen in the back of other shots. Like there was a doll, which you might have seen, I put on the side table near the lamp. Because it looked like Anne, she had a Raggedy Ann doll in one of the frames, and we're like, oh, okay, there's a doll there, so we'll get our own doll and we'll try it out and see how we go. And then here is where I'm resizing the entire house again, because I was like, hang on, the back of this house makes no sense. It should be way smaller. I think the kitchen in the end is probably still a little too big, but we decided to keep it a little bit larger just because it was a bit nicer anyway. So instead of cramping it all together, we kept it a little bit bigger. And I did actually have a side door into the house you might have seen there that entered into a hallway. We decided to get rid of that because we couldn't really keep the hallway anymore. There wasn't really any room for a hallway. And now it just makes more sense for that side door from the alleyway to come around to the back porch of the house, which I'm actually really happy that we were able to get that sort of the whole alleyway half wall. And then there's the doorway there, because there's a lot of scenes where she's like taking out the trash or taking the trash back in through that side door. And I was like, you know what? I love that. I really, really like that. So I was happy that we could get that in. And we decided to actually end up going with 2 bathrooms because the layout was so strange. Because we ended up with this space left over. And this happens when you have weird layouts. We have extra space left over. So we decided to do a bathroom cross laundry in this one. So there's no shower or anything like that, but it's a toilet. And then obviously washer and dryer. And then a sink, and then the other bathroom is an ensuite bathroom to the bedroom that has the shower, the sink, all that kind of stuff. So that's a full bathroom. This is kind of, I guess, half bath / laundry. And we figured that was kind of the best use of the space because it just really couldn't be anything else. There was nothing else we could put there. And you can see at the back of the house there, we had that like three wide room. That was a bit odd. But it kind of had to be there. Otherwise, the house was the wrong shape. So it was there, and we just turned it into a home office. I guess you could also make it a second bedroom if you wanted to. And I decided to put a little clothesline there around the back because it fit in quite nicely. Now, the kitchen, we do get a few shots of through the back of the living room, but there's not a lot to go off of. Like, we didn't have a lot of reference material for this. We kind of had the rough colors of the kitchen. Like, it looked like there was green walls. The counters were cream with a brown top. And that's kind of what we got. That's pretty much all we had. And we had the position of the sink and the window above the sink. And that's what we had. And then everything else we just had to make up. And like I said, I think the kitchen is probably, it ended up being too big, but I think it's quite nice anyway in the end. We probably could have made it a little bit thinner than it is. Maybe only 2 or 3 tiles deep. I think it's 4 at the moment, back where that door is. So it's a bit bigger, but hey, spread out. Don't be so cramped up anymore. You got loads of room to play with. And there's obviously a lot of stuff that we can't see. So we just sort of put a bin around the corner there, did some sort of side buffet cabinetry. And then we did a lot of clutter. That was something I did a lot of in this house, is actually just doing random clutter items, even like all the debug hidden items. We just sort of put them around because that's what it looks like in the show. There's just a bunch of stuff there. It looks like a lived-in house. I mean, that's how it's supposed to look. So we went ahead and did that here in the kitchen as well. And typically in the back of the shots that we saw, there was a bunch of just stuff all over the counters as well. So I'm just trying to find appropriate things to put there. And I actually ended up getting to the point where I covered all the counters, and then people were like, hang on, where are they going to cut up food? So I was like, all right, hang on, I'll move some stuff. And then I left that corner counter so because they can use the corner one to cut up food and prepare. And then everything else is sort of nice and cluttered. And I put that rug down in the middle of the kitchen because I thought it actually it kind of gave it it tied it all together, turned the empty space into a more cozy kitchen, even though it's still quite big, but it feels a little bit closer, which is quite nice. And then what are we moving on to? The bedroom at this point. Now, I don't know that we have any references of the bedroom. I mean, there's probably some shot. Like I said, there's probably some shots of all this stuff in episodes somewhere. But like I said, short of actually going through and watching episodes until we find it, we kind of just made this up. We had no idea. All you could see in one of the shots was there was a bed through these doors, and that's kind of what we went with, and that's all we had. So the rest of it's just made up. We just kept it kind of in theme with the house, same style of furniture, pretty standard stuff, nothing too crazy. And if you watched the last house building video I did, which was that circle one, it was very beige and all that in terms of colors, because that was like a 90s, early 2000s build. When we were doing this, we're like, oh, I didn't realize we were building a beige house 2.0. And I'm like, it's not my fault, I swear. It's just what it looked like in the show. We're recreating it. Although I guess to be fair, we didn't know what the bedroom looked like. So we kind of just made that up as we went. And just getting the second bathroom here done now. Just a pretty simple, just shower and sink. I think I just copied the same fixtures from the other room and just, added a couple more. Like we had the shower and all that. And it came together quite nicely in the end. But I think this is This is a fun build. I had so much fun just doing this because it's so silly, and it was literally the first thing that came to mind when they announced terrain tools, and when they showed them off, I'm like, oh, we can make the pit from Parks and Rec, and then you could do like a rags to riches of Andy Dwyer living in the tent at the bottom of the pit. I really want to do that, but I don't really have time at the moment because we're doing so many other. We got the other brand new Let's Play going on at the moment. We've also got Super Sim, which we're sort of revisiting right now. We don't have room in the roster, but if any of you guys want to do it, you should. Feel free to use this lot and just play as Andy Dwyer living in the tent, or maybe play as your own sim and do whatever you want. Really, you know what? You don't even have to use this lot. I don't care. You don't have to. You can just watch this video. As long as you watch the video, that's fine. I mean, if you're at this point and still watching, well, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for getting this far along. And then what are we doing? Oh, yeah, we realized the house is really dark because we've just been using a lot of placeholder lights. We're like, we should probably start lighting this place up. We didn't go too bright with the lights. Like, we kept it pretty like warm, pretty cozy. Not too, like, it's I wouldn't say dim, but it's not super bright either on the interior. Lots of lamps as well to make it feel like a more lived-in kind of place. And now we're finally moving on to the landscaping of this house. Again, we have a pretty good understanding of what the front of the house looks like. So it's just a bunch of shrubs around underneath the bay window, and then some of these sort of more scruffy ones around the place as well. And there's just some plants along the front porch there. There's also a fire hydrant in the front lawn. But I don't think there was any fire hydrants in the catalog of The Sims 4, so we couldn't really do anything about that. Although, where this lot is placed, there is a fire hydrant on the pavement just out in front of the house, so I guess that's kind of there, but not really. Anyway, yeah, so the front lawn we kept pretty simple. I don't think there's hedges there with our house, but we put them there because they look quite nice, so... And then we did some around the side over here as well. We kept the sort of front of the house looking quite nice and quite well kept. At least it looks pretty green, especially compared to the pit. So we kept it pretty green. And then the backyard's a little bit more dingy. The grass you can see is a bit brown. Maybe she's not taking care of it that well, or it's a bit muddy. It's also maybe not getting that much light. But yeah, so we kept it a little bit more sort of worn in and all that. And then we just did some more sort of vines there along the side of the house. So obviously there would be another house behind this. I think there was in the show, but we had to continue the fence around there because obviously we don't have room for another house. So we just continued the fence that way and kept it all pretty, pretty simple. I'm pretty sure the pit was bigger than her house in the show. I think it was probably the width of the entire block. I think it was, if I recall. So it'd be one house here, then a house behind hers, and the pit would have been that whole size. But we did our best, and we sort of, I guess, did a scaled version of it. And I think it looks really, really great, and I had so much fun. So this is where we try to do a little bit of detailing, because we realized that the cliff, well, not the cliff, I guess the side walls of the pit look a little bit bland at the moment. And also just the pit in general, we need to put some more trash around the place. We've got some logs here, and you can see I've got some planks sort of sitting on top of it, which I thought was kind of cool. Because there's just a lot of construction gear left over, bits and pieces, random assorted items. So we're trying to go around and do all of that. And then I wanted to add more detail to the sides as well. Oh, also, this is like the perfect item because there's a bunch of, you can see in the show, there's a bunch of like pallets and that just left in the place. We don't actually just have a pallet item in The Sims 4 for some reason. Even in debug, I don't think there is. But we do have this bonfire that is made out of pallets. So I was like, well, let's put that down there so you can go down there, light a fire and, have a bit of fun. And I think I was trying to find a new tent. So in Get Famous, there's actually a new tent that looks way more like the tent that Andy actually stays in. It's like this tiny little crappy thing. But that tent is actually decorative, so you can't sleep in it. So at least the one that we have there from Outdoor Retreat, you can actually sleep in it and live in it. The one from Get Famous looks way better and way more appropriate, but also I didn't have Get Famous at this point in time, so that's why I couldn't find it. So that tent looks more appropriate. So if you just want it to look better, you could always swap it out for that one. If not, it's fine the way it is. I'm just doing a little bit more trashy. And I think I do a little bit more. Yeah, we do. I'm basically trying to create a few ridges around the side to make it not look so, perfectly even all the way down, making it look a little bit more rough. And then I try to do some rocks to make it look a little bit more like, freeform, not freeform, that's not the right word, a little bit more realistic, but then I realized the rocks actually made it look way worse, because the only way to make that look better would be to add in way more rocks, like loads and loads and loads, which number one would have taken ages, number two is not even guaranteed to make it look any better. And also because they're on the side of a cliff, they sort of float a little bit. So it was better just to not do them. And yeah, so I finally put in those little lounge chairs that they use, a couple of like sort of garden chairs and a cooler so you can have a quick brewski there on the side. And then we get some pipes sticking up out of the ground that might have been there for construction at some point. And that concludes the pit, Lot 48, and Ann Perkins' house. So here is the pit. I think it looks so great. I had so much fun digging a hole out of the game. Literally my very first build with terrain tools. I guess unless you count the one I did earlier on with when I went to Sims Camp, but not really. I didn't really do much in that. So this was a lot of fun to do. So if you wanna look up what this actually looks like, if you search for Parks and Rec, the pit, or Parks and Rec Ann Perkins' house in the pit or something, you'll be able to find a lot of the images that were used to build this, and then you'll be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So making sure we get a look. This is like the shot they use regularly on the show. So that's why I sort of put that one in there. You can sort of see the same angle, and one from behind where you see that other way with the TV and the bay window and the piano. And here is the kitchen as well. And like I said earlier, this is available for download off the Sims 4 gallery. So you can go download it from that. There's a link below, or you can search for my origin ID, which is The Sims Apply, all one word, and it will be just there. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was a little bit of fun. I don't typically do recreations from TV shows or movies because, like I said earlier, they usually are pretty inconsistent and don't actually translate to a real layout. But this one, it worked, and also it was so much fun. I know I've said that so many times, but it was a good laugh. We did it all live. If you want to watch back the live stream, again, that's on my website. Also, make sure to follow me on Twitch, like I said earlier, or check out some other builds here on screen right now. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to download it and follow me on Twitch. And I'll see you next time. And have an awesome day.